things you'd like to talk about, and then you can have your questions for them. So, Ryan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jordan. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome to a new Senate year, different than an academic year, but excited to be with you all. Can people who are joining us virtually just give me a thumbs up? Can you hear at this volume level okay? Excellent, thank you. So yeah, I'm Chief of Staff with President Mialis, and on behalf of him, I wanted to come and build a little bit more talking about strategic planning, what the university is moving to as sort of a planning culture, and really use Senate as a liaison with some of our thinking, and also talk about how it will really play out for the university over the years ahead, and places for engagement between us as Senate and a university leadership as we go forward. I know that Allison Chase-Padula came and spoke to you and said it on April 12th. So I'm going to build, and I can share a couple updates from some of that feedback because we've had meetings since then. And I can share some of the places where thinking has been refined and get your feedback and ask a couple questions, but then also share some new areas for you all as well. And there's a couple places I'll stop for questions, so you can sort of build some questions into area, use the chat because I know it's being monitored, and that'll help us kind of work through some of the updates and stuff together. So first and foremost, with President Mialis and him working with myself as the Chief of Staff and really a lot of new leaders across the institution, a new Chief Financial Officer, the new Provost, and a lot of other energy, a lot of new academic deans that will be coming in and joining us in the fall, a new Chief Diversity Officer joining us in the fall. This is really going to be the first year of really President Mialis' leadership team. So it's an amazing time for the university to be thinking about strategic planning because he's really setting the direction of where we're heading as a university. So with that process, one of the things that I think you will see as students really differently about the institution is that we're setting a strategic plan for the institution, and then all of our division and unit plans across the institution get revised to support that vision. Colleges tend to be fairly siloed and different initiatives will crop up in different areas, but this will put a reset to all of that work for us. And once we have a vision that's set, every institution says, how do we fit in? What's our role to support this plan and this direction of the institution? So the high level things that I can share with you that really matter, I think, for the student experience, first and foremost is budgeting. We've had a process where the institution has set a budget, and then you start each division deciding what they're going to do in the upcoming year with the money that was allocated to them. We're setting a strategic plan in place first, and then allocating the budget to achieve those goals. And so that may mean reallocating budgets, that may mean working together in ways we haven't across the institution before as a leadership team to really support the direction that we're heading in with the right resources behind it. We're doing more with data sharing. The Office of Institutional Research is now reporting into the Office of the President, and I work closely with that team. So more interest in sharing data, different surveys that we'll be sharing out across the campus and the university in different ways, which then is looking for areas to celebrate success, areas we need to improve, and then just overall improving accountability. So sharing a diversity scorecard, how are we doing in the student experience? How are we spending our financial aid dollars? How are we investing in different parts? And is the plan working that we're building? Marketing and communication, telling the stories about the university, promoting better, getting more recognition from regional to national for the things that we're pushing in the strategic plan. And then most importantly as well, facilities, and then also our staffing. So when we think about a strategic plan and we're moving in different directions academically, do we have the right space? If we're trying to grow a certain major, does that school need more financial support because they need to hire more faculty if these are the majors that we see are the majors of the future? So there's so many pieces of thinking about our physical footprint, our hiring within the faculty and across staff to support a changing student body, that all those pieces need to move together for strategic planning to be successful. And President Mialis has set a lot of that in motion. And those pieces, I think, are moving in really powerful ways. The last sort of administrative piece that I would share is then how he is bringing our alumni and the industry and state, federal government into our planning process as well. So we've created a number of advisory boards over the last 6 months, and they are different industry leaders that are helping us say, this is how our workplace is changing. This is how our hiring process is changing. This is what we need your graduates to know. And so we're really sort of reverse engineering some of our academic planning as well, so that we know what a graduate needs to be successful. And that is helping us think about advising, thinking about majors and minors and the curriculum that we offer, and not just thinking about the programs, but also the competencies. So what do you need to know to be successful, to get into graduate school, to win a Fulbright scholarship, or to go on and head into different industry pathways? Those things have tended to be very school-based at the institution, so a lot of strong connections at the school level, but we're really pulling this institutional level planning so that the career center resources, that alumni, and that this advisory board keeps the whole institution moving in a powerful way going forward. So that was update number 1. Just these are all things that sort of, I think you can look at as prerequisites for strategic planning. If we don't have the right resources budget, if we're not reporting and measuring our success, no plan is going to be successful. And we put a lot of work into that, and those are some pieces that other planning groups are working on that I just wanted to share and underscore with you all, that are just some really exciting directions that the planning culture is really changing in the institution. The other thing is that planning is going to become much more nimble. We are not building sort of a 5 or 10-year plan, putting it on a shelf. We will be trying things, piloting things. Some things you may see us launch within one school where a lot of help is needed, see that it works before we do it across the whole institution. So really a culture of being more nimble as an institution is something else that the president is really pushing us to do. So that sense of, this is really big, it's going to take a lot of change. We're breaking things into smaller pieces and trying them, learning from them, and then adjusting, tweaking things, and moving forward. So culture is really going to be something that we do across the board. So think about questions in that area. I'm glad to answer questions about infrastructure in a little bit. But I wanted to then talk about the student experience, which is a key part of strategic planning for us. Ms. Allison Chase-Padula came and spoke to Senate on April 12th. I had the pleasure of watching that on YouTube. Thank you for being transparent with your Senate session so that I could see that. And I wanted to talk about a couple things that were said there. And for those of you that may not have been there, I'll underscore and just refresh on some of those conversations and then go a little deeper. But there was a lot of conversation that I took away talking about different pathways to and through the institution. So someone coming to us straight from high school for 4 years, someone on an accelerated 3-year pathway looking to do an MBA and a +1, transfer student pathways and all the logistics we need to solve with credit pathways and transfer credit experiences that students have. So there was a lot of conversation in that area. And then another key area was talking about a discussion about required internships within each program. And the conversation that was had here at Senate was really helpful, and a conversation we had after with Allison's team that was working on this, and then also with the president's cabinet, was we're talking now more about experiential learning as something that all students have, not just an internship. I was an English major as an undergrad, and the idea of an internship would be very different than an independent study. We're doing research with a faculty member, or studying abroad, or working on co-authoring a paper in the sciences with a faculty member, different than an internship might look in different schools of study. So we're starting to talk about experiential learning as sort of an umbrella phrasing, rather than saying every student will have an internship by the time they graduate. So the conversation here was really a wonderful one in that regard. And what distinguishes an experiential learning opportunity different now than the Feinstein Connections Day and things like that is that we're looking towards thinking about a requirement in experiential learning as being a semester-long experience. So regardless of what a student does, as a credit-bearing experience that has a depth of engagement, if you just do volunteering at a soup kitchen on one Sunday, you're not building deep relationships at that site. You're not making an impact. And so this sense of experiential learning is about being in solidarity with the place where you're interning, gaining a deeper level of experience, and not just saying I have to do this required service. So we really are looking at that sense of how we build the first couple of years of a student's time here to prepare for an experiential learning opportunity, to find the right faculty advisor, thinking about a major or the type of opportunities they have, to have a deeper experience, and typically what is probably going to be a junior year experience of depth for a student by the time they graduate. So that was an update to think about some comments there. And then the biggest place for discussion for when we stop for questions and comment is we spend a lot of time, and I think in the session with Allison, talking about advising and mentoring. And what I wanted to share is that the conversations I've been in, one with the board of advisors that I mentioned, mentoring is deeper than academic advising. Academic advising is that curricular pathway, knowing the major, the courses that you need to take. But mentoring is about, how do I get the most out of my college experience? Am I happy? What do I want to do with my life? And how do I get there? And these bigger mentoring pieces can come from many places. We talked to board of advisors, many of whom, some of them graduated from Roger Williams in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, and they talked about the biggest mentor they had at Roger Williams was their coach. The biggest mentor they had was one of their adjunct faculty members who's in industry and teaching, and they learned a lot there beyond their academic advisor, who has to be, by a policy requirement, a full-time faculty member. But the industry links was what helped that person find their career path. So when we talk about wanting to be a culture of mentoring for you as students in the next 3 to 5 years and building those types of relationships, we want you to think, and I'd love to hear from you in a moment, who's helped you the most at Roger Williams in your time here thus far? Has it been other students as role models? Has it been coaches? Has it been alumni that you know? Is it your advisor? Or is it a teacher that you've had and a faculty member that you've had but may not be your actual academic advisor? So who we think about as mentors, how we build a mentoring culture, train people to be mentors, to open those pathways for students. It's an area we really want to go deep in and explore over the summer. So that's a piece too. So the experiential learning and mentoring are two big things I'd love to hear your feedback on tonight. And then one other piece, and I'll save some others for Q&A, is there wasn't conversation in the meeting, but I can tell you there's lots of conversations about how with strategic planning, where does sustainability fit in? How do we think about being a sustainable university? What do we think about sustainability for career paths for our students and majors and minors and such? And so I've done work over the last couple of years with a couple of the Sustainability 401 capstone courses, and there's a sustainability tool called the STARS tool. And it's a measure for a university to get rated and compared to other institutions on a number of different measures as a sustainability assessment tool, basically, for the university. And that's something that the university is going to be looking into very seriously over the summer. There used to be a sustainability committee at the university with lots of subcommittees, one for facilities, one for environmental, one for the student experience, and it was populated well with eco reps and very well populated. But over the last couple of years, that group hasn't met in 2 years. It's sort of a defunct committee. We want to be bringing that committee back in the fall, working on this STARS assessment tool as a group and having sort of student representation, faculty staff representation, to use that as a tool, again, to my first comments about holding ourselves accountable, measuring our progress on sustainability initiatives of different kinds, and using that as a tool to find areas to, each year see we're low on one part, so that's going to be a part we invest in the next year in planning, and just use it as a really powerful tool to think about the curriculum, our hiring practices, and things across the board. Sustainability through the STARS lens is defined as environmental and business well-being. So it does look at living wage of employees. It looks at the investment in our university endowment portfolio. Are we investing, in harmful products? Are we, divesting from fossil fuels? So there's a lot of places this tool goes for the university beyond just environmental, and it's one that we're excited to think about and get some feedback on that as well. I could go on and on, but I want to hear your voices, and I'm mindful of time. So I'll pause there for those core places of reaction, feedback, or questions, and glad to yield that time back.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Just for, I hands up when we knock. I know it's going to be confusing at
It's the
first.
version, the Senate
Yeah,
version of
yeah.
snapping.
We three agree entirely. So, okay, so perfect. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and I'll recognize you. And go ahead and get started on our question and answer portion. Adam?
Thanks for joining us, Mr. Williams. Where do you see Student Senate partnering with the strategic planning committees in the university administration in the near future?
I think there's lots of places for those opportunities. First and foremost, I believe that with Sam Avila and the past president, the culture of having President Bialis meet with the executive leadership was something that was just getting talked about and started, and I can imagine that at a leadership level continuing. Anytime that there are things in strategic plan that fit with your existing committee structures, I think there's a clear energy there. So as we're talking about academic initiatives, how does that work with an academic committee to partner? There are links between the student life committees within Senate, student life with Dr. King and Carol Petty and all of their work, as well as up to the board level, and a board committee that talks about the sustainability, the student life, the retention, recruitment issues at a board level. So there's some connections and opportunities there as well. So I think committee to committee and structure to structure, absolutely a great place for it to be. I'm willing to come back anytime. I'm sure the president can come as well. And I think as we move to a place where we're talking about an equity scorecard and dashboard that's going to be published annually, we talk about the sustainability tool, and we have some other measures that we have, bringing that to Senate, sharing data, having a venue to say, here's how we're doing. And here, well, that box looks great and it looks like things are going well, but they're really not, because here's what we're hearing in the student experience from Senate. I think it's a place to hold us accountable, and I welcome that as well. So, the leadership levels, the committee structure, and then just open discussion and dialogue and using it. I think there's lots of opportunities for that.
Zach?
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for being here. So you alluded to how the structure of President Bialis' team has grown, as well as exponentially with new folks, with new leadership roles. I'm just curious in regards to how that went, the overall process of how it was growing. Obviously, it was not inevitably going to happen incrementally. It was going to happen rigidly fast. So I just want to know if you could just talk about that and how that process went overall with the administration.
Yeah, so I've been at the university for 4 years. And so President Bialis has been here for 2 now. And I think the process has been one that I am incredibly pleased with. We've lost some incredibly talented people, but we've replaced them with incredibly talented people. And a president being able to shape his own team is a really powerful thing. We have some people, and I think Dr. King, who's been here for a lot of time, he is sort of our institutional memory at the leadership level and keeps us incredibly honest and structured. So if part of your question is sort of wow, is everybody so new, like no one really knows Roger Williams, we have like a good continuity of people who've been here for a while. Scary that with 4 years of experience, it's sort of my senior year. So I have a footing that a number of other leaders around the table are newer, but that's an opportunity to not have bad habits, not have things that's like, well, that's the way we've always done it, so let's keep doing it that way. It's like, well, but it's not working. This isn't working. We want to push to a new place. So fresh eyes has been really great for us that have been here for a number of years. And then newer people are just bringing a whole new energy and building on Giannis's vision of what the university can be. Does that answer how you guys think?
So I actually have a question, and then I'll move on to you, Ashley. So like you just said, not everyone knows what Roger Williams University is. So what kind of talks are being had during the strategic planning process or with faculty about how more people are going to know what Roger Williams is? Because I do know in speaking to the president, having him come to student senate meetings, he's told us that it matters where you come from post being here, because the better the university does, the more your diploma means something. So what talks are being had about how we can get more international students, how more people can know what Roger Williams University is and choose here as their university?
Yeah, so being from the enrollment background and leading our marketing team, I'm glad to answer that one. There's a little bit of, I think we need to do two things at the same time. One is really celebrate what we're incredibly good at now and recruit and enroll students and bring them in from further away places and work from our existing strength. And the other is we're recruiting students now. We start recruiting high school sophomores. Once you take the PSAT, you're all familiar, you start getting mail from universities. But the university we're telling them stories about is going to look different 3 to 5 years from now, right? So we're selling them, talking to them, telling them stories about majors we haven't created yet, a culture of mentoring that doesn't fully exist yet. So we have a balance of trying to do both things to get the word about Roger Williams out wider. But we're also going to have new stories to tell, new majors, new opportunities, new ways to attract people from further away. Because that challenge for international from California is, why would I come from California to Roger Williams? And there are clear places where the answer is solid. Our students from further away find us for architecture, for sailing, for business in the cafe program. Like the things that we can hold up that are incredible programs now, our marketing further away becomes more program specific instead of like Roger Williams being known, right? And so that's the balance of what we need to find in our marketing over the next 3 to 5 years, of having amazing new centers of excellence that we name, that we put our PR dollars behind, that we create a physical center on campus. So our buildings are really school buildings. They're not centers for an initiative. If you think about your own campus tours, if you see a center for innovation, a center for leadership, the things that Roger Williams is saying, we want to be known for these 3 things, and we're going to put it on a building, align our donors, align our marketing, align our PR, and all move in the same direction. So the power of being known nationally, internationally, is going to come out of the strategic planning process, I think, to the level of, someone can say, tell me what you know about Roger Williams, and they'll be able to say, oh, it's this, right? And I think within how we're talking about mentoring, how we're talking about experiential learning, and those 2 things are connected to me, it starts to move to a way that all of our students will experience a Roger Williams education, which is the main thing we need to promote. The way that when you think of Northeastern, what do you think of? Oh, co-op, right? We want to be known for, regardless of what major I choose at Roger Williams, this is how I'm going to go through. And this is the quality of what I'm going to get. And that's the rising of, I think, looking institutionally, not just having, cylinders or little pockets of excellence now. It has to be a guaranteed part of the whole process for every single student.
I will say, as far as people who have mentored, personally for me, it's been just professors I've had. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak on that, but that's the point you did bring up as well, so thank you. Ashley?
As far as with the strategic plan, how much do you see the university expanding? As in, like, how many possible majors do you see? How much more faculty are we going to bring in? How many more jobs are going to be created? And how many more students do you think we'll be able to bring in?
Yeah. So one of the important things about opening different pathways to the institution is so that not every single student is a recent high school graduate looking to live in a residence hall on campus for 4 years. How we open up students that may have an associate's degree, live off campus and finish 2 years, thinking about some hybrid or online experiences. We need different pathways because of our existing footprint on campus. So our short-term growth has to come from different pathways than the traditional 18 to 21-year-old. I know that because the numbers geek in me in the admission side. The years where we have freshman classes that are closer to 1,200 than 1,100, we have a third of our freshman class in triples. You all know what that experience is like, and we don't have the capacity to just open up and say, let's add more majors and add more faculty to bring in more students, because then the student experience will be actually diminished, right? You can't deliver on a personalized attention, advising, mentoring culture when you're crowded, when you're waiting in line in the commons because everyone has the free time. And, so we really have to look at our physical footprint as part of strategic planning. And I think the short term of thinking about graduate growth, thinking about certificates, thinking about industry partnerships, and doing a lot of corporate certificates for workforce development, those things through university, college, and across campus can grow enrollment, grow revenue for the institution, that then allows us to think about the campus master plan and building residence halls, building a student center. So the 1 to 3 year is pushing different realms, getting the marketing going to where you mentioned, to then say, now we can start thinking internationally in different supports, because we can bring in and have students living, because we're building the next thing. So 1 to 3 years academic growth, non-traditional. 2 to 5 year planning window is then, what does the physical campus look like? How many students can we have the capacity to teach, and really being thoughtful about that and the growth majors and such.
And then as far as like who I've seen as a mentor, like I came in as an undecided student, and my advisor was no help to me in like discovering where I want to go, like what majors I want to choose. And for me, it was a lot of students who I was able to look up to, many of the people in this room and people who used to be in this room, that were the ones that have really guided me into figuring out like what I want to major in and what I want to do in the future.
Thanks for sharing.
I actually do have another question. So, I totally do not know if this is part of the strategic plan or anything like that, but has the university thought about offering like options for high school students to do dual enrollment through our university? That way, students would get the experience in high school and then maybe possibly want to choose Roger Williams because we have given them some credits already, and just make it possible for high school students to get the ball rolling here at Roger.
Yeah, so in Rhode Island, the Advanced Course Network is the vehicle that does that. Through University College, Roger Williams is the largest provider of dual enrollment in the state. So we actually do more of that than CCRI does. So how we track that, we have not done a good job, right? You know, if we look and say how many students had Roger Williams credit in high school, and then did we mail to them and invite them to an open house? Did we see how many applied for admission and enrolled and came in with our own credit already under their belt? We need to do a better job connecting that, instead of just, here's the University College initiatives and they're getting credit, and then we don't connect it into the recruiting process to the institution. So that's something we have an eye to, but we absolutely can do better than we do now. Added to that, pre-pandemic, there were a lot of ideas of pushing on experiential learning opportunities for students in the summer. The business school created a 2-week course that included a trip to a local business incubator to like see and gain experiential learning and gain credit. We had a political science course mapped up to like work on a campaign and gain 3 political science credits, but then have an experiential component tied to it. Women's and Gender Studies created a course that was partnered with Girl Power Incorporated in Fall River to do gender equity and outreach to 7th through 12th grade young women. There's so many things we can do to say, if we want to be known for experiential learning, let high school students come on campus, be with us 2 weeks in the summer when it's beautiful, get credit, and then see what this place is all about. So post-pandemic, vaccinated, experiential learning and opening up like the camps and conferences and being a year-round campus is a huge thing that we definitely have an eye to. So yeah, that was when I said there were 2 things I didn't mention. This was one of them, of really being a year-round campus. And the more students are on campus, and we could do a poll here, but when I was in Ohio at my last institution, 50% of students ended up enrolling at the first school that they ever visited. So if you all think about that, it's like, this is the one I'm going to compare all the other ones I go to against, right? And you usually say, if I'm going to start touring schools, I want to start here. And it affirms it was one of your first choice schools. So we saw about half the students doing that. So the competitive side of our admissions team, Vice President Amy Tiberio and others, we want students on this campus in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. They form bonds, they meet faculty, they're learning, and then they see that they can do it here and be a part of it. And then we just kind of connect that right through. So absolutely, it's a huge, huge area.
How Thank you, Mr. Williams, for coming down. I really appreciate you. My question for you is, how will how will they build relationships with local businesses for experimental learning? How will we, as a university, go about that?
Yeah, so relationships with local businesses will come from a couple key places. Of course, through the Community Partnership Center. So when we have outreach to sort of nonprofit entities, government entities, the CPC process, it does a lot of that outreach now. The Board of Advisors that I mentioned is another key place. And the Board of Advisors that we've built is connected directly with our advancement staff, as well as the CCPD and the Center for Career and Professional Development. So this Career Center doing more outreach, showing and saying, we want to make sure every one of our students has experiential learning. And right now we're around 70 or 80%. We need to gain more capacity, more placements. How many can we put you down for, right? So really a sense of having staff that are corporate outreach focused is a key priority to be able to meet this commitment to get towards 100% of our students having those types of opportunities. So really starting to do that work is the work of the next year to year and a half to keep opening that process. And when we start recruiting students that have it as a requirement, think about it, there's more opportunities we can open now for current students. But to have a freshman class and say you have a requirement and you must do something before you graduate, you really have 3 years to have all the infrastructure built. Because by the time they become a junior, we have their full freshman year, full sophomore year, the planning we're doing now to get that scaled and ramped up. So it's definitely, I think, across the president and our whole team, the Board of Advisors, the Career Center, and CPC. Those are core places that the energy will come from. And the final one is each of the schools and deans. You don't have to go far out of the CECOM school. Construction management has a model with their own Board of Advisors. They have their own connections. They do a lot of the work for summer camps, conferences, internships, and job fairs on campus. You have the firm and residence program and some other opportunities where the architecture school is very externally linked and facing. So there's a lot of existing things that we can just move from good to great. Some things are already well along and we don't need to work with it all. So that lets us focus our attention on the places where we really need to grow capacity. We've thought a lot about this. Thank you.
Are there any more questions from the speakers list? Would you like to continue on the other 2 points that you have?
The only thing we haven't talked about, and it's really specific to this freshman class, and in the space of mentoring, I would just share this to all of you as Senate, but it's something that we're starting to think about a lot, and it cuts across our student life colleagues and the residence halls and the REs, peer mentors very especially. This incoming freshman class has not had a traditional high school experience for the last year. And we'll have over 1,100 students coming to us who their high school may not have adapted to hybrid teaching really well. They may or may not have been graded for the last year, right? So think about our own experience last spring as students where the semester went pass fail. A lot of high schools have done the same thing. And we spent a lot of time on our enrollment team this last month, with the May 1st enrollment deadline, realizing that we were already test optional and we didn't look at test scores for a lot of people. And then transcripts had a lot of pass fail, had a lot of learning that may not have been deep high school learning for these students. And they're going to come to Roger Williams with a faculty that are like, we're excited to be back in person. Boom, welcome to college. So the mental health of this class is something we're all incredibly mindful of. So beyond strategic planning and what these students will experience in mentoring and internships and things 3 years from now, how we plan to be a place that is really excellent at mental health and well-being of our students really matters this fall. So the one topic that we're thinking a lot about, I wanted to share with you that across our teams, the counseling center, Allison Chase Padula and her staff and academic support, those things are going to really matter this fall. And the peer supports that this class has, I'm incredibly mindful of. I know there are a lot of current freshmen at Roger Williams who say next year is going to feel like a freshman year all over again because this year was a unique year for me as well. So I know in many places getting used to, are we allowed to wear masks in class? Should we take our mask off in class? These labs, gee, I'm really close to my lab partner, or I haven't learned this way because we didn't do it this way last year remotely. All of those things I think I just flag as it's not strategic planning and what is Roger Williams going to be 5 years from now, but the present is still going to take our attention. And I just wanted to note that with all of you. And just it's an opportunity and an encouragement to Senate and other entities to think about what role does peer mentoring and being there for others as you did through this whole year mean for this incoming class and helping their transition to be successful. So you hit this year-round summer. That was the one other thing from a planning perspective that I just wanted to call out that it did come up in my earlier remarks.
Anyone have any feedback from Mr. Williams or any last questions regarding anything he said, or want to provide any insight on your experience? Who was a mentor for you? Whether or not Roger Williams was the first school that you toured and picked. Because for me, it wasn't actually. I actually toured many schools, surprisingly, but it was like my third school. And I did fall in love with the campus once I got here. But Mike.
First, I'd like to say thank you for being here. And I would like to mention that in the past, we've talked about changing the core curriculum for the future. Is that also going to be included within the strategic plan? And how would you go about implementing it, if it is?
Sure. So a faculty group has been spending considerable time over the last year and a half on that very topic of what gen ed and what the core looks like. So the faculty senate is really the place of the owners of the curriculum. There's a partnership between institutional strategic planning and an academic master plan. So the provost, the deans, and faculty senate are the places where the core kind of comes to life and what the curriculum looks like, the credit hours to graduate, core major requirements and such, and how that all comes together. So in some ways, it's fair to say an institutional strategic plan is silent about the core, but they need to play together to say, if this is what industry is saying our graduates need to look like, how does the core support that? The faculty are the ones that revise the core, but it should be done in the context of external scanning, understanding what our competitor institutions do, understanding what our graduates need. So this idea of more and more boards of advisors that are guiding a curriculum. So it's not just looking at here's the core we think our students need as a process. I think the core group, and they have their own videos and some of their minutes online. You can find some of their presentations about how they've been thinking about the core. It's going to be leaner, a little bit more nimble for students. And I think, that planning that is on the academic side is really where that'll come from.
Thank you. And just because we're going over our mentor experiences, for me, personally, I got a lot of my mentor experience from here in Student Senate, but for faculty members, I think I would have to go to my advisor. My advisor, it was a really weird setup because he was for art majors, but I was a criminal justice major. So one of the things I loved about my advisor was that he would actually put forth even more effort just to be able to help me until I could get a new advisor, which is nice. Especially considering for many students who are coming into the college landscape, they're going to be coming in blind and they're going to have to figure out what they have to do for themselves. And that's one of the things I really like about this mentor system that you're pushing for. And also, when you said about how usually the first campus you tour is usually the one that you pick, that's also the same thing for me. Especially considering I always used to look at Roger Williams when I'm driving by, and it was for me it was just always that university I've always wanted to go to in my mind.
Nice. So 50-50, like I said.
Yeah.
That's the easy thing with statistics. Thank you for sharing that. And that's the trick of mentoring, right? Sometimes students will say, I know I want engineering. The curriculum is pretty straightforward and it's linear, and I need to take this in order to take this in order to take this. And advising academically is a thing. But some students will come in and say, I don't know at all what I want to do. Someone will come in and say, I'm good at these three things, but I don't know how to turn it into a career. So there's an art to that. And so an art, it doesn't surprise me that an art faculty member sees the art of like dealing with you the way that it worked for you. But how do you ensure that the right type of advisor for each student? Multiple advisors. Allison Chase-Padulo likes to talk about sort of a mentoring team that you wrap around a student, because it's adjusting to living on your own for the first time possibly. It's being far away from home if we do more nationally and internationally. My last institution, we connected with international communities off campus for our international students. I was on a campus and there was a large Korean population in the city. And we approached them first and said, we want to recruit more internationally. In Korea, can you help us? They have the Korean community in Greater Cleveland, where I was, created scholarships, hosted families for holidays, hosted the students over breaks instead of going all the way back home. So those are the types of things where mentoring to me is a big capital M, help with life, help with transition to college, help with finding a career and a passion, things you're passionate about, help when you're fighting with your roommate. So it's a wide mix of things, and how we just make sure a student knows where to go and is comfortable seeking out an assigned mentor or having the tools to find a mentor on their own when they're not getting what they need from certain places. I think both of those things, empowering students, really matters.
Thank you.
Ashley?
So kind of thinking on what the previous center set up first, as far as like visiting what schools I came to first, the first school like I officially toured ended up being my second choice, and this was like one of the third or fourth school I toured. But then thinking back about like the driving past, like my dad came here, so like from a young age, like we'd always come here to Rhode Island. So the fact that like as a child, like visiting the school then had an impact on like me ending up coming here is something I definitely think you should think about. Like when you're talking about if we should reach out starting like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, like the fact that I like thinking as far back as like when I was a child, like falling in love with the school, like how that had an impact on me coming here.
So branded Roger Williams diapers and pacifiers, and get them. Any along with a child, just start right from day one.
So I have a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the first one is, a few years ago, Roger Williams left behind the Affordable Excellence Program where the tuition was locked in. So how are we making sure that in our strategic plan that we're really focusing on the affordability of it? And has there been any conversation? I know from an institutional standpoint, affordable excellence is not the preferred option for the future, but what are we doing to remedy that?
So I can share two things about affordable excellence and our transition with it. And for staying at a high level, but it'll help understand it. When tuition is frozen for all of your students, but the university is trying to grow and invest in more faculty, invest in facilities, and gain the dollars we need to run the institution, which grows year over year. With frozen tuition, the only way to raise incremental money is to grow headcount. So at a frozen number, you need more and more students to realize that extra dollar amount in each given class. I came in 4 years into affordable excellence at the university where budgets were being challenged. And it was like, well, then we need 1,200 freshmen. In my first year here, that freshman class was 1,208. And honestly, a third of the and that's why I remembered it was my first fall here. A third of the freshman class was tripled. So it's not just having 2 roommates, but it's longer lines in to shower in the morning. It's cramped facilities. It's strain on classrooms. It's the class that should be 18 is now 22. And that pressure on we need this higher number of freshmen in order to have the revenue we need in these other places. Undoing that to have a tuition increment each year that's the right size, that doesn't have students transferring out because of affordability, is the shift that we needed to make. The year we made the shift, we added over $2.5 million into that freshman class's financial aid budget. So as cost went up and schools are experiencing incremental, we also are raising financial aid is mindful for each incoming class so that it's not all passed on to students. Anyone in the room that is with honors program or saw like or is in under this new model, if students are performing well academically, we have a scholarship incremental each year as well. So I can point to probably 3 to 5 things we did to say tuition is going up, but affordability still matters. So we need more money in our financial aid appeals process. We need to advocate for federal and state aid. Thank you for your resolution for doubling Pell. These are the things that move that say, even though cost is going up, support has to go up with it. And those are the conversations that we have at the leadership level with our board. So when we're setting tuition, we say that cannot all pass on to students. Our financial aid budget needs to also increase. We need to be mindful of if it's a 3% increase on our junior, we need to think about funding the experience, funding, in appeals for the family. Because through 4 years, you may have had one in college in your family, and then you have a younger brother, and now you're junior, you have 2 in college. That dialogue with financial aid matters. So I think I answered both parts of your question there, hopefully. That affordability, just because we didn't get rid of, just because we moved away from frozen tuition didn't mean we moved away from affordability.
And then, so in the past, we've had different other kind of strategic planning processes. The one right before COVID with the different committees and as well as the campus master plan. So what factors have led into this current strategic planning, and what's the future looking like for the campus master plan?
For Lord of the Rings fans in the room, it's one plan to rule them all. We have had multiple planning efforts that have been disconnected from each other. So we had done institutional planning, and then it was like, we need a diversity plan. And then campus master plan did a campus master planning process without thinking about, can we double the size of our architecture school? That's a made up scenario. That's not a real scenario. But how can an enrollment professional grow the size of a freshman class if we don't know what majors have capacity to grow, right? We were doing things too disconnected as an institution. And that's what President Mialis has kind of shifted to say, hold on, this is where we're heading. Now let's build an enrollment and marketing plan. Now let's think about our facilities the right way. This school's going to grow, so we need to invest in faculty in that school in the next 3 years, right? We're all moving together and working in the same process. And the best plans pre-pandemic were all put in front of the teams that are doing planning now. We said, look at these initiatives from the Equity Action Plan. How do they become institutional priorities? Not just here's the diversity plan, so our new CPO is going to do it. It's like, no, equity has to be at the center of what we do as an institution. So if we're going to do this, who does it leave behind? Who does it help? How does it include everyone in our planning process? And the equity questions are guiding the overall plan. So I think the best of pre-pandemic planning, the CDO and our equity action plan, you see traces of it in everything we're doing now. And that's the first time most new presidents come in and say, that was the old president stuff, I don't want to look at it. President Mialis went back to 3 presidents ago. We looked at plans from the 1990s and institutional plans from the early 2000s. There was a Roger Williams plan for 2020, and it was 20 objectives by 2020. And we've accomplished like 15 of them, but no one talks about that plan. 325 people worked on that plan. A lot of them are still here at the institution, but it was a president 2 presidents ago, so we don't talk about it. President Mialis is like, there's good stuff there, bring it forward. So that culture, truly that culture of planning and looking at the past and building the future is something that feels just quite different with the leadership that we're seeing at the university.
That's definitely great insight, but just to dive a little deeper into the campus master plan.
Yep.
And kind of the property across the street.
Yeah.
Where are those going to factor in? So will we be seeing some of the campus master planning elements coming in the future still, or has that kind of gone away because of COVID?
No, it hasn't gone away. But again, I think as we say, these are the initiatives, these are our plans for the campus, these are the majors, these are the centers we want to create. That's going to revisit the Providence campus and our entire Bristol footprint on both sides of the street. So yes, I read the Hawks Herald every week. Saw the op-ed as well with questions about across the street. present, I would just tell you there's no plan for Wind Hill other than strategically picture if someone else bought that and what people at this institution 5 and 10 years from now would say, why didn't you grab it? Right? And any finance majors in the room around us? Any Gabelli folks? No? Yes? Okay. So we have our endowment, and now in our endowment is real estate as part of our portfolio. You need to think about Wind Hill right now as an investment in an asset. We don't have a plan for it, but we've invested in it. Property values go up, not as much as Dogecoin, not as much as other things in the market may go up and down. But we're mindful of if we'd had a plan 3 years from now and did not have that property, future presidents would look back at that moment and say, what were you thinking? Why did you not acquire adjacent property of that acreage to limit your thinking? So right now it's in a place truly where Wind Hill is like dreaming. We've talked to different faculty. We've received Office of the President's email account, gets many ideas from students, from faculty, from neighbors about what it should be and what it shouldn't be. And it's an open dialogue right now to say, look, if this is the type of campus we're going to be, maybe, picture scenario where we say we want to go from 4,000 to 6,000 undergraduates. Well, great, we need more space to do that. That's going to lead you in a different path for that property than if we said we want to stay the same size, but we would want to do X, Y, and Z. Then it can be something different. So there's lots of conversations, I think, over the next 3 years that bring the strategic plan, that property, the conversations we need to have with the town of Bristol about access and zoning of that property and what it can be. And that'll be an engaged process. I'm sure we will engage architecture students in design projects and such. And there's experiential learning right on campus in terms of engaging and what the property can be for us.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Again, I know you want to hear some of our experiences.
Yeah.
I'm a commuter student and also a freshman. I'm going to be a rising sophomore next year. And honestly, about the mentoring, I got a lot of my mentoring from a lot of organizations and clubs that I joined. I joined the International Relations Organization, film production, and now I'm in Senate. And honestly, compared to my classes that were my classes for my major, those classes were online, so it was harder to build a relationship with those professors, And so I kind of got a lot more my mentorship this past year, my first year of college, through the clubs I've been in.
Good. No, that's super helpful. Probably a little bit out of the Senate space explicitly, but something that the Senate could do as well. One of the things I'm a fan of is when we have data that can help and we don't use it, we're failing. And one of the things I'm really proud of it, my last institution we did, and I just shared as an idea for any clubs or orgs you're involved with, when students apply for admission and they're coming into the freshman class and they filled out the common application and they've told us and checked off all these boxes of what organizations they were involved with in high school, there's also a little box on the Common App that says, are you interested in continuing in that organization or activity in college? Yes, no. If someone was involved in student government in high school and says, yes, I'm interested in staying involved with it, that list should be to you. That should be a letter in August from the president of Student Senate to say, welcome to the incoming freshman class, and hey, so we do amazing activities and organization fairs, but to reach out to a student that said, we noticed you played Ultimate Frisbee in high school. Do you want to join our club? Here's how we're like, so it's that information is sitting right there. And from the enrollment perspective, from the admissions team, making those connections. So when we have these types of conversations with you as students, and you say, clubs and orgs were great mentors to me, then I say, here's how we can facilitate that. And how can we make that transition for a student to say, here are things you did in high school, you want to do them here, we have it. Or, hey, you may need to create it. But making that connection is such an important thing in the student experience. So just making something like that happen and facilitating that. It's just one more layer beyond academic mentoring, faculty mentoring, and then having that club org and getting students connected early on in their time here. So I think that way when you share that experience, so thank you.
Does anyone have any final questions? Mr. Williams, while he's here.
bwilliams@rwu.edu. And also, if you send something to the president, it may end up on my desk every now and then as well. That's what chiefs of staff do. So anytime there are other ideas, please let me know, and I'm glad to help out.
That emails in the group chat as well. All right, seeing none, thank you so much for
Thank you.
visiting us today. We
Glad you-
appreciate it. Hopefully, you can come join us again soon.
Anytime you call.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Good luck with finals and end of the spring semester, everyone. Thanks.
All right, so moving right along, I would request a motion to
Motion to open new business, or no, old business, or open debate, sorry.
I forgot.
Second.
Got a second. All those in favor of opening open debate? Those opposed? Abstentions? Open debate's now open. Does anyone have any topics for open debate?
Motion to close open debate.
All those in favor of closing open debate? All those opposed? Abstentions? Open debate's now closed.
Motion to open old business.
Second.
Does anyone, all those in favor of opening old business? All those opposed? Abstentions? Old business is now open. Any bills for old business? Zach,
Introducing SS48-012, bill authorizing summer spending.
pull it up. Would you like to elaborate?
Sure. So, sure as you heard, we have some plans for the summer, some of which have already been allocated for in the budget. But there are going to be some other expenses that come up over the summer, such as a retreat, some other conferences, and just other things for other expenses. So this is just a bill putting in writing that that Adrian Blair and they have the ability to use the Student Senate fund as long as we are in agreement and made aware of our purposes.
Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any motion?
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? Opposed? Abstentions? This bill is now called to question.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Second.
Is there any dissent? Great, this bill passes. Are there any other bills for old business? Adam?
Introducing SS48005, the bill appointing Zachary LaFontaine to the position of Student Senate Finance Committee Chair.
Would you like to elaborate?
I'll yield to the president.
Awesome. Okay, so I've had the pleasure of working with Zach for 2 years now. We were once appointed together. And during his interview and inquiring about the finance chair, for those of you who don't know, he was the past clubs and organizations chair, where he did a remarkable job in that position. As he talked about in his interview, he's really interested in working more with the clubs, as he has done in the past, but this time really getting to learn the finance side of it and become more well-versed in that, and just seeing how the clubs that, he started or helped start, how they're doing and be able to assist them more in that aspect. So, yes. Zach, would you like to speak a little bit about why you're interested in this position?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve as Club Road Chair for the past 2 years. And I think I can also be able to execute in this position with knowing how that operation works and being able to bring those experiences as well as those tool belt, if you will, to the finance committee and learn that area with the new treasurer as well, and learning how the operations in that aspect work as well. So I think it's going to be an honor and privilege to work in that arena as well.
Does anyone have any questions for Zach? Seeing none, do we have any motions?
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? All those opposed? Abstentions? Bill's now called to question.
Second.
Is there any dissent? All right, this bill passes. Congratulations. All right.
Introducing SS48-006, a bill appointing Brian Carroll to the position of Student Senate Clubs and Organizations Committee Chair.
Would you like to elaborate?
I'll yield to the president.
All right. Following in his sister's footsteps, Brian showed immense interest in the clubs and orgs chair. He reached out to the previous clubs and organizations chair and really got an understanding of what the committee entailed. He also really showed interest in his interview and wanting to aid the clubs and assist them in any way possible. I truly feel as if he'll be a great asset to this committee and do a really great job chairing it. As past senators may know, SS47, he's really committed to Senate, and I think he's going to do a great job in this position. Brian, would you like to elaborate a little bit on it and explain why you're interested in this position?
Yes, and thank you, Jordan, for all those kind words. So yeah, I'm interested to work with clubs and orgs because I want to help them better themselves and help maybe start a few new clubs and get some of the old clubs back and running again to what they were before COVID, hopefully. Yeah, it's pretty much what I want to do. I just want to help the clubs as much as possible.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Brian? Seeing none, do I have any motions?
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? All those opposed? Abstentions? This bill is now being called to question.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there any dissent? All right, this bill passes. Congratulations, Brian. All right, Adam.
Introducing SS48-007, a bill appointing Ali Schoenfeld to the position of Student Senate Student Life Committee Chair.
Would you like to elaborate?
I'll yield to the president.
Thank you. All right. So as the previous student life chair, Ali showed immense interest in this committee and has been seriously a light to have on the student life committee. She's always asking questions, always jumping forward to help out in any way possible. And in her interview, she expressed to us how interested she is in this position, how some of her ideas, some of the things she really wants to implement. And I can't see a person who's better fit for this position. So Ali, would you like to elaborate a little bit more and explain why you're interested in this position?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for the nice words. But Student Life Committee was definitely a really exciting time. I love working firsthand with students. I think, working directly to help benefit, students' experience on campus is something I'm very passionate about. My experience in martial arts is something that I brought to the table in a lot of the involvements that I am in on campus, whether it's leadership skills, morals, everything like that. I just think, student life and safety is really important to me. So maybe bringing in some of my experience, teaching, whether that's self-defense, et cetera, obviously keeping on the sustainability because we did a lot last semester, last Student 47. So that'll definitely be a fun time to keep going. And I'm really excited to work with all of you.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Ali? See none. Do we have any motions?
Call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? All those Opposed? Abstentions? This bill is now being called to question.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there any dissent? Right, this bill passes. Adam,
Introducing SS48-008, a bill appointing Mike Arell to the position of Student Senate Academic Affairs Committee Chair.
awesome. Would you like to elaborate?
I'll yield to the president.
Thank you. All right, Mike Brown. So in his interview, he expressed interest in this committee. He also did a brilliant job of shadowing last year's committee chair, Brianna, and there was nothing but positives to say about Mike. Everyone knows that he's truly such a hard worker. He gives everything and anything to Senate. And I really do think that in this committee, he's going to take it to so many new levels and be able to really give this committee the time it deserves. Yeah, Mike, would you like to speak a little bit about why you're interested in this committee?
Sure. Being given the opportunity to hopefully become the Academic Affairs Committee Chair, I got really excited because this is something where I feel like I can best utilize my resources. As I've said in the past, I like the idea of being a liaison between the student body and, of course, the student senate. This will help that, and in fact, but instead, I'll be looking at the academic sides of things. It'll allow me to help me learn about passing more legislation, which I really hope to do in the future. And I've already started having conversations with, for example, my e-board member, Adam, and I'm actually really interested in the position and seeing where this would go.
Awesome, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mike? Seeing none, do we have any motions?
Well, let's go to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? Opposed? Abstentions? Bill's now called to question.
To adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Very decent. Right, this bill passes. Doesn't feel inclined to do. All right, Anna.
Introducing SS48-009, a bill appointing Ashley Arias to the position of Student Senate Public Relations Committee Chair.
Would you like to elaborate?
I'll yield to the president.
Why, thank you. Well, got our last name right. I'm so happy about that. You didn't even get an SS47, but SS48 is different, everybody. All right, Ashley. So, in her interview, Ashley expressed nothing but interest for the Public Relations Committee. As a PR major, she really thinks that she can really take this committee and do some great things with it. She expressed how excited she was to work in this position and how it's something that she really thinks it will benefit not only her major, but her student senate. What was I supposed to say? Also, as you people who were in SS47, Ashley is very committed to Senate. She's always willing to speak up, always willing to have her voice heard, especially even if it's not the most favorable opinion. She's always willing to speak up and stand up for what she believes in. So I think she will be a great asset to this committee and really be able to continue its legacy. So, Ashley, would you like to speak on why you'd be interested in this position?
Yeah, I'm interested in the position of PR chair because I want to make sure that the student body knows that the Senate is working hard to make sure that we represent them well, and that the student body knows that Senate is here for them, and that any ideas the student body has, the Senate will be able to push forward on them and make them happen. And I also want to work on making sure that on all our social media platforms, the student body sees that we are a professional org and that we are working hard, and that they know that we aren't just like figurative people up here. Like, we are actually student leaders doing the work that we say we are doing.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Ashley? Seeing none, do you have any motion?
Question.
Second. All in favor of calling this bill to question? Opposed? Abstentions? This bill is not being called to question.
To adopt by unanimous consent. Second.
Is there any dissent? All right, this bill passes.
Introducing SS48010, a bill appointing Jack Dunn to the position of Student Senate Parking Council Chair.
Would like to elaborate?
I'll yield to the president.
Thank you. So Jack actually took over for the parking council chair last meeting just to get his feet wet and see what the position was like. And he did a great job. In his interview, he also expressed nothing but interest in this position. Having sat on the committee, he has reached out to the past parking council chairs and really gotten their perspective on what to expect. And anyone who knows Jack, especially people from SS47, knows he is not afraid to have his voice heard either. He will speak on an array of topics and let people know how it is. And he's really a voice of logic and reason. And it's one of many reasons why I think he will be a great parking council chair. So Jack, would you like to elaborate and let us know why you'd be interested in this position?
Sure. I guess one of the main reasons I'm interested is I see all the issues. I see the ins and outs. I see all the emails. I get 3 different perspectives on parking. I get 3 different answers. So one of the things that I'll be looking forward to trying to solve this semester is getting everyone on the same page across the board, from public safety to Kate Tobin, Steve Malorano, and trying to put forward a plan for parking as far as what we expect of students. We do have a lot of issues with parking out front. I know every single one of you has seen a car parked in the fire lane out front of Commons. Everyone should know that you should not be able to park there, and you cannot park there. So it's stuff like that we need to go through, overlook. We have a lot of parking issues, so it's just a matter of tackling a lot of those. So I look forward to doing that and getting the wheels turning on that. No pun intended.
Add that to the quote book, please. Anyone have any questions for Jack? Seeing none, do we have any motions?
Motion to call this bill to question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, this bill's now being called to question.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there any dissent? This bill passes. All right. Adam,
Introducing SS48011, a bill reestablishing the academic allocations ad hoc.
would you like to elaborate?
I will this time.
Good.
So this is a bill reestablishing the committee so that we can provide funding for students for not for credit academic conferences and events. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we have not had this committee since SS46. But whereas we're planning a full in-person semester, and we're also expecting academic travel to continue, it's time to bring it back. All of these standing committee chairs will be present on this committee, as well as myself and our treasurer. And there'll be more information if this bill passes at tonight's cabinet meeting.
Anyone have any questions?
All of this bill to question.
All those in favor of calling this bill to question? All opposed? Abstentions? This bill's now being called to question.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there any dissent? This bill passes.
Motion to close old business.
Second.
All those in favor of closing old business? All those opposed? Abstentions? Old business is now closed.
Motion to forego new business.
Second.
All those,
Could not do that.
all those in favor of foregoing new business?